So we've got Brian Bronson of Radisys here. Brian, welcome.
Craig, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So you've been CEO there for what?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, this month.
Okay. Now I know Radisys from the days of ATCA and talking about hardware standards and stuff, and that whole aspect of telecom has really moved forward, and you are taking Radisys into this openness world.
Yeah,
that's opening up.
Exactly.
So why don't we start by talking about Cord? That seems to be a hot topic for you guys. What are you doing there?
Well, yeah, and thanks for the intro. I mean, Radisys has been around for 30 years, and when I took over 5 years ago or so, we thought about taking all of our expertise in hardware like ATCA, and our software switching capabilities and our protocol stack capabilities, and thought to ourselves, look, we've been traditionally enabling telecom equipment manufacturers. The world's changing to SDN, NFV. Now we'll talk about Cord, central office redesigned into a data center, and say, there's nobody out there that can be an integrator of open source centric solutions, so why don't we take our expertise and parlay it into selling direct to operators?
Okay. That makes sense, because that is one of the things you always hear about open source. You get all the pieces that are available and you can manipulate them, but now what do you do?
Or even some of the pieces, and somebody's got to put it together.
Right, and they kind of snap together like Legos, but like Legos, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't end up with something that's in good shape.
Exactly.
So if I wanted to draw an analogy, what you're doing with Cord, is it analogous to an OpenStack distribution where you've got one company's version of the OpenStack of the open source platform? Is that fair
enough, but it can be OpenStack, or it can be, hey, what VNF do you want to have virtualized and ported onto a hardware platform using OpenStack? It could be helping to decompose a particular piece of the network topology. It could be really any of those things as a starting point. In many respects, sometimes our initial engagements are services. Professional services to say, hey, what problem would you like us to solve? And sometimes it'll be, well, we would like to virtualize this portion of the network. Or, hey, we'd like to use Cord, but there's a few pieces that we want to have of our own. So the sleight of hand. And there's nobody out there that can say, yep, understand, and we're willing to do that for you. Relative to, hey, but don't you want to buy our box? So
there is always that. That's one thing I'm curious about, is the procurement process. Like, I guess what you're making available is a way to, if someone is starting from this point, a way to buy Cord as opposed to assembling it. Do you see that being the norm as open source gets into the telecom world?
I do. I think it'll take some time. So what I'm seeing right now is you have the larger tier one operators. I know that's fuzzy. What's tier one and tier two? But the big operators around the globe who have the resources to weigh in on open source, maybe are contributing some of their own code or products, and they're more apt to tinker, to do the interoperability with us, to say that it may not be Cord in its purest form. A couple years will go by, we'll get those early commercially deployed products out, and then I think the tier two operators will follow and be more apt to take a shrink-wrapped R-Cord solution or a shrink-wrapped M-Cord solution.
Okay, that's the phrase I've been using with OpenStack. In fact, totally different realm, but in the enterprise I've been thinking that OpenStack's best chance of success would be for a shrink-wrapped version of it to appear. And some startups are doing that. So I like the direction with Cord. Do you work with the Open Compute project as well? Because that also seems to be kind of up your alley.
Yeah, we do. In fact, it wasn't but I think a week or two ago where OCP formally anointed our data center rack as the de facto standard for telco. It's CG Open Rack 19. So here again, in this open Radisys, we developed it. We saw the universe of OCP players and largely deploying in enterprises. We didn't see a telco version. We called our first instantiation of DC Engine actually TOCP, or Telecom OCP. We changed it to DC Engine from a marketing perspective, but it's all about, look, you want that rack from Radisys, we can deliver it. You want to go build it yourself, go knock yourself out. You want help in porting VNFs onto a piece of infrastructure like that, we can do that for you. But it all starts with we're different, and it's open, and it's a DevOps sandbox. What would you like to do with it?
Tell me about the Radisys Open tagline or slogan, or how are you using that phrase, and what's it meant to really mean?
Well, it's meant in a lot of different ways, because I don't think there's anybody out there, and this sounds, I have to be presumptuous, but in our situation, who can honestly and unbiasedly talk about being open, being
they all
Switzerland.
Talk about being open. Everyone has their own definition of open, so why don't we ask the question this way, what do you mean by open?
So I mean that we're willing to play an integrator role of open source components without having any Radisys content.
Oh, okay.
We just developed TOCP DC Engine. That was a point product for us. We just open sourced it.
Okay.
We just put it out for everybody to use. We open sourced our EPC.
Okay.
We open sourced our RAN protocol stacks. And all of that is in the context of, look, we want to help you deploy disruptive solutions, change the way your network's running.
Okay.
If you want to use some of our solutions that we've developed, our Flow Engine product, or if you have media processing capabilities and it fits within that open framework, we can use it. Okay. But we're also going to say, look, if it doesn't fit, or if you want to use somebody else's traffic distribution engine and not Flow Engine, fine, we'll do that for you.
Okay.
Open also can mean too, helping them separate the control plane from the data plane. I mean, we can get into the specifics of, disaggregation and embracing other people's, but that's the large part what Open Radisys is about.
You had mentioned that a lot of these customer engagements start in a services context where they have a concept of where they want to go, like I want to virtualize stuff, but don't really know how to do it.
Yep.
I'm wondering, how much do the telcos really know about what they want out of openness, about the move to a data center kind of format? How well formed is this in their minds?
You know what, to be honest with you, I in general, I think it's further along than many might think. The issues that the operators are facing is you'll have a tops-down direction, you'll have a clear vision statement from the leadership team, and you'll have clearly the CTO office. I'm talking about traditional buckets of functional leadership. And then as it gets into more network operations, into procurement and some of those other places, that's where the conflict comes in on, well, I understand what you want, but can you commercially deploy it? Who's going to support it? Hey, I've used this vendor for 10 years, I trust them, and the network's just got to work. And so that's where the conflict is right now, and this will all, I mean, open-centric solutions is going to happen. I mean, every operator around the globe, they can make their own declarations on who they're going to use and what pieces of software they're going to embrace, but everybody's doing it, so it's only a question of when.
How well do telcos and open source mix? How well does Telecom understand the open source world? How well is open source adapting to Telecom being interested in them?
I think that's a really good question. I think that the telcos have a pretty good understanding of open source. I think with the insertion of organizations like was on .lab, now ONF, TIP, that really understand the telco piece of being disruptive, those things are coming together nicely. I keep coming back to then soaking that deeper in the operating organizations where they can understand that, no, this really is going to work. Here's the progress, here's the proof of concepts. Look, we just showed you a demo of an XRAN solution, right? It really can scale. My guess is that once those first commercial deployments happen, whether it's residential cord, or maybe it's an early instantiation of mobile cord, and they really get into the network with live traffic, then there's going to be a tsunami. It's just that log jam's going to break, and I don't know if that's in the summer of 18 or if it'll take all the way through 18 to really get in volume, but by 2019, it'll be here to stay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the issues are cultural, like the technology they understand.
Exactly.
It's this whole idea that the stuff just sort of amorphously sits out there, and instead of waiting for a standard to happen, it's up to you to put the pieces together, to find the community that is going to support you and build something out of all that. That's what's new to them, I think.
Yep. And I think that, I won't name any operator names, but there are a few operators around the globe who not only get it explicitly, but have been putting their own money to work by feeding the disruptors. There's got to be probably a more elegant way to say that, but if the operating community doesn't fund the disruptors genuinely, they're going to go back and be stuck with the incumbent vendors. And they're not going to get what they want. So it's no longer the technology doesn't work and those sorts of things. It's, look, you're going to have to pay vendors, trusted partners along the way to continue to disrupt and deploy to make this successful. And that's not a selfless plug for Radisys, but that's the way it has to work. You can still embrace your trusted incumbent vendors. You can make them stand at attention by having Radisys or others do a portion of the disruption to make sure they get what they want from a CapEx and an OpEx or a spectrum utilization or whatever their objectives are, but they've got to feed the disruptors.
Okay, great. Well, Brian, it's been great talking to you. Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Appreciate it.